arrest after a man was found dead on U of T's campus downtown this week. More on the search, plus details about the victim coming up.
Prime Minister Mark Carney meeting with Canada's premiers today in Ottawa ahead of an expected election call this weekend.
And we'll tell you which 6 Hudson's Bay stores will remain as the company gets permission to liquidate its other locations starting Monday.
And Heathrow Airport in London has resumed flights after an electrical fire halted operations at one of the world's busiest airports.
This is Live at 5.
Hello, I'm Melissa Duggan.
And I'm Lindsay Biscaya. Welcome to Live at 5. We have an update in the investigation into the city's latest homicide.
Let's go live to CP24's Beatrice Vaisman. Beatrice, what are you learning?
Melissa, CP24 has learned that a 31-year-old man from Toronto has now been arrested and charged in the brutal beating to death of a 60-year-old homeless man outside of U of T campus here downtown yesterday. Again, this 31-year-old man now arrested and charged with first-degree murder. What I've learned from police sources, Melissa and Lindsay, is that this was a member of the public who was clearly paying attention. This member of the public out in 51 Division, so on the east side of Toronto's downtown core, when they spotted the man. And the photos that police released earlier today, the photos from security cameras, and that's when this member of the public called police to alert them, called 911. Officers from 51 Division quickly responding and arresting this 31-year-old man. So again, CP24 learning a member of the public out and about in 51 Division, so east part of the downtown core, spotted the man in these photographs after this press conference at 1 o'clock this afternoon with Detective Sergeant Trevor Grieve from the Homicide Unit. Recognized him from the pictures and called police. As for what happened, it was yesterday, 5:20 yesterday morning, that police say 60-year-old Mario Ferreira, a homeless man, was sleeping on a bench outside of the pharmacy building on U of T's downtown campus. That's when police alleging he was approached by this 31-year-old man. The man allegedly beat Mario Ferreira to death with some kind of debris that he picked up, police say, from a construction site. They wouldn't divulge exactly what that piece of debris was, whether it was a pipe or a brick or something else. But the 60-year-old man beaten to death, his body found 3 hours later by someone passing by, that person letting campus security know, campus security then calling police. And as troubling as those details are, Melissa and Lindsay, police classifying this earlier today as a completely random attack. There was no provocation, no conversation or argument that happened in the minutes leading up to it. So here's what we heard from Detective Sergeant Trevor Grieve earlier this afternoon.
From what I can see on the surveillance, I do not see any sort of altercation that occurs between the victim and the suspect, and I am treating this as a completely random incident.
So how alarming is that? You've got someone attacking people.
I think it's very alarming, truthfully. That's why I've asked to come before you all today as quickly as I can to get the message out on who this suspect is, so that we can try and locate him and get him into custody as quickly as possible.
Detective Sergeant Grieve asked about his conversation with Mario Ferreira's family. He said he spoke to a couple family members, actually, and they didn't share too much about him, but we're certainly hoping that the person police believed was responsible for this random murder would be brought to justice quickly. And so now we see how this works and why these police, not only press conferences, are so effective, but putting out photos for the public to see is incredibly effective as well. It just takes one person who's walking around, eyes open, paying attention, to recognize a murder suspect and to call police. And now we know a 31-year-old man arrested and charged with first-degree murder this afternoon. Back to you.
Okay, CP24's Beatrice Vaisman reporting live with those breaking news details. B, thanks for that.
Hamilton police have a suspect in custody after a man was found dead in Waterdown earlier this month.
Yeah, police say the suspect was the victim's friend. So for a closer look at this case, we're going to bring in CP24's crime analyst, Steve Ryan, who joins us in studio. So, Steve, walk us through your takeaways in terms of this case so far. Obviously, the investigation is still underway.
Yeah, it's still underway, but the police were able to make a quick arrest. So sometimes good police work goes with the assistance of the public or friends. And in this particular case, the 55-year-old deceased named Jeff Nyhouse, his friends were the ones that assisted the police in identifying who the suspect was who they believed killed him. So this started on March the 6th. That's when a friend went to Jeff's house at 9 Wakefield Lane in Waterdown because he hadn't heard from him in a few days. And when the friend went into the house, he found the man had suffered gunshot wounds. He was obviously dead. He was pronounced deceased at the scene there. And now police believe that the homicide actually happened on March the 3rd. And they made a quick arrest as well. But before we get to that, let's hear from the detective from the Hamilton police who spoke with us earlier today. See what he said.
The motive remains unclear at this time, but I can say that it does not appear to be a robbery, and we have no information that it was drug-related. The accused and Jeff were known to each other, and it appears that the accused was an invited guest into Jeff's home on that Monday. An interaction between the two ultimately led to Jeff being shot inside the home. The details of the interaction remain unknown at this time, but we do not believe that it was a random act.
And what is it that we're learning about in terms of motive here, Steve?
Great question, and there was no motive as of yet. And that's an important point because to solve a homicide or to get a homicide conviction, you don't necessarily need a motive. Motive helps in expanding your list of suspects if you're looking for an unknown suspect, but it also gives the family answers as to why something happened that caused the homicide. This case, they don't know what the motive is. They say they were friends. It was an isolated incident, and they're still looking for the murder weapon.
And I think there's obviously a lot to still be uncovered here. As someone who, used to do some of this kind of stuff in these investigations, what do you think police are actually going to be looking for in terms of uncovering that weapon, the fact that they were friends and had mutual friends, all of those kind of bits of information?
What was the animus? What led up to that homicide? Now, clearly, this deceased, had a lot of friends who cared about him because they provided information very quickly to the police. In fact, one of the friends was so concerned he went over to his house to check on him. So they'll provide a background as to what happened. And I'm sure with a case like this, cases are never cut and dry, but this is as cut and dry as they get, I would suggest. And in a case like this, they most likely will have a motive. But again, a motive is really not important to prove or to solve a homicide.
And what about the complicating factor of finding the suspect in this case in a different city? How, is that approached when you're working behind the scenes on a case like this?
So he was found in Calgary. So the Hamilton police reached out to the Calgary police and to the RCMP out in Alberta. There's no extradition treaty, clearly, because you're in the same country. So it really is not that difficult. An arrest warrant is signed. The Hamilton police here will send that arrest warrant to Calgary. They'll see that warrant. It's lawful throughout the entire country. The Calgary police then will make the arrest, and then the Hamilton police will fly to Calgary and return him, and that's what they did.
It'll be interesting to see how all of this unfolds. CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan joining us in studio. Thanks, Steve.
You got it.
Thanks so much for that, Steve. Appreciate it. Let's check in on the commute now with CP24 traffic specialist Adjoa. What's it looking like out there, Adj?
A couple of problems making for a busier drive. We're not winding down yet in terms of rush hour, but watching a situation, Melissa, this is on the 401 westbound. If you're in the collectors, just as you make your way past Whites Road, it is a stall. It is that left lane and shoulder that is blocked. The good news, this one's not really impacting your commute. Delays are impacting your drive, but things are starting to thin out a wee bit. Northbound DVP is heaviest from north of Don Mills up to the 401. Find that Gardner still pretty jammed as you exit the downtown core. And we still are dealing with this closure in the downtown core of King, closed in either direction, just west of Strong at Massey. This is for that serious collision involving a pedestrian that was struck, and as well outside of camera view still have problems happening in Richmond Hill. You'll find a stretch of Bloomington. It remains closed both ways between Bayview and a Steeplechase for a crash from this afternoon. But a bit of good news. A Yonge Street southbound was closed between Elmhurst all the way down to Shepherd for a collision involving a pedestrian. Just got the word that all lanes reopened. I'll send it back to you.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
Okay, to other news we're following. Police are investigating after a man was found shot on Danzig Street.
Police were called to Danzig and Morningside just after 3:30 this morning. Officers found a man in his 20s with a gunshot wound. He was rushed to hospital and is expected to survive. Police have not released any information about suspects or where exactly the shooting happened. Anyone with information is being asked to contact police.
And a man and a woman are facing additional charges in an alleged Taylor Swift ticket scam.
Police say an investigation was launched in November into complaints involving fraudulent or undelivered Taylor Swift tickets purchased from a third-party vendor. The individuals went by the Facebook profile name Denise Blackhawk. Further investigations revealed a confirmed 55 incidents of fraud. 44-year-old Denise Tizer and 56-year-old David Blake are facing charges including money laundering and possession of property obtained by crime over $5,000. The two are also facing separate charges in Toronto related to Taylor Swift concert tickets.
Well, a significant pro-Palestinian rally is planned downtown this weekend, and Toronto police held a briefing on what officers will be focusing on.
We are constantly in communication and making outreach to event organizers, some of whom cooperate with us, some of whom have adopted an adversarial stance and will not cooperate in any way with us. Our job is to facilitate a peaceful protest. Our police liaison teams are constantly reaching out to event organizers to understand what their intentions are and how we can facilitate the safe protest. So it's an ongoing process, but I will highlight and emphasize the important role that our police liaison teams play in this particular role.
Let me be very clear. Charges can be laid at any time, whether it's hours, days, or weeks after the incident. For example, earlier this week, after a lengthy investigation, we announced that very serious charge was being laid against an individual, including advocating for genocide and willful promotion of hatred. We will not hesitate to arrest and charge anyone who engages in criminal activity. Toronto is one of the most diverse cities in the world, and we all share the responsibility to keep it safe.
Jewish groups, including B'nai B'rith Canada, have called on cities to ban Al-Quds Day rallies, saying they're a conduit for incitement and anti-Semitism.
It is 5:11 right now. This is Live at 5. Stay with us. We've got a live look outside Hudson's Bay at Scarborough Town Centre tonight. We'll tell you which stores Canada's oldest retailer plans to save coming up after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. An Ontario court has given Canada's oldest retailer permission to liquidate all but 6 of its stores.
For more on when the sales will begin and which stores will be saved, let's go live to CP24's Seja Liu outside the Hudson's Bay at Scarborough Town Centre. Seja, I wonder what the fate of that Hudson's Bay is going to be.
Well, unfortunately, this Hudson's Bay at Scarborough Town Centre is not one of the 6 being saved, and that means it, along with 70 plus other Hudson's Bay, will begin liquidating on Monday, going until June 15th, and then those stores will vacate by the end of June. The 6 stores being saved are its Yonge Street flagship location downtown, the Hillcrest Mall location in Richmond Hill, as well as the Yorkdale Mall location in Toronto. The other 3 are in Quebec. Those are the only 6 stores temporarily being saved right now. Now, this comes after a judge gave the green light in court today to the retailer to begin selling off its inventory. The company's lawyer says the plan was to liquidate all stores originally until recent sales exceeded expectations. That's why they were able to save these 6 stores and save some jobs as well out of the 9,000 plus employees that work across these companies. But these 6 stores aren't safe for good. The lawyer said if a solution can be found, that there is an opportunity to pull stores out of liquidation, but it can go the other way as well. If things get worse, these 6 stores will also be added to the liquidation sale. Now, we know Hudson's Bay, they filed for creditor protection back on March 7th. They faced significant financial challenges, couldn't make basic payments and desperately needed cash. They suffered from subdued consumer spending, trade tensions with the U.S., and just a post-pandemic shift when it came to store traffic and how people shopped. Take a listen to what Bruce Winder, a retail analyst, had to say about the latest developments.
Makes RioCan happy because they've agreed that they're going to pay them some rent. It also gives the judge hope that they're trying hard to find a new buyer, gives them time to find a new buyer. With the 6 stores, it allows them to showcase what the Bay could be in someone's eyes. So that may attract a buyer. It may attract financing as well.
And speaking to people outside the store at Scarborough Town Centre, most people weren't happy about the liquidation sale. In fact, they were sad to see Hudson's Bay go because it's been a staple of Canada. They grew up shopping here, their families took them here, and overall they are sad to see this staple of the Canadian landscape take such a fall. Take a listen to some of the reaction we're hearing to this.
I did hear about it from my sisters actually just in the car when we were arriving here, and I grew up with Hudson Bay, I'm pretty sure, and at least from my history classes, I've heard that they started really early on, even selling beaver pelts. So hearing that they're closing, I think I'm a little concerned for the Canadian economy and how exactly that's been going.
Yeah. I'm a little bit sad, kinda, because I've heard about it a lot in my history class, especially my literacy teacher. He's been talking a lot about it. And so it kind of feels a little bit sad because they've been with us for so long and stuff.
And a few other things to keep in mind for shoppers. The loyalty program, that has been paused. And if you have a gift card, you have to use it by April 6th. They won't be accepting it after that. Hudson's Bay, they haven't said how steep these discounts will be come Monday for its liquidation sales. But Melissa, Lindsay, those liquidation sales beginning on Monday, going all the way until June 15th. And then stores like this one at Scarborough Town Centre will be shutting down by June 30th.
Some interesting reaction you're getting out there, Sija. That's CP24's Sija Liu reporting live for us tonight.
Heathrow Airport is resuming some flights after a major power outage prompted the airport to close.
The airport is starting with repatriation flights for passengers who were diverted to other airports across Europe. It'll also relocate aircraft that had to land elsewhere when Heathrow shut down. Now, the airport says it expects to be back in full operation by tomorrow. However, travelers are still being advised not to show up to the airport today unless their airline has advised them to.
This is unprecedented. It's never happened before. And that's why I'm saying it has been a major incident. Of course, everybody has been shocked, but all our procedures have been working the way they should. I hope people appreciate that we do not close down the airport unless we have severe safety concerns. That's why we do it. And that's what has happened today. We've been working tirelessly to get the operation back into running, and that's what's now happening.
A transformer fire caused the outage at Heathrow. This drone footage shows the flames engulfing the substation. The UK's energy minister said there's no foul play suspected and that it appears to be a catastrophic accident. We spoke to some passengers who were caught up in the chaos.
We had tickets to get to Heathrow from Rome, headed to Austin. And we got here, checked in. They said that they were boarding, things as normal. And then when we were up in the lounge, they said, there's no flight.
And they said there's a fire, and the fire was outside Heathrow Airport, but that their electricity was out.
An aviation expert compares today's day-long closure of Heathrow Airport to the air travel delays after 9/11. Pearson Airport says 5 scheduled arriving flights from Heathrow were canceled, as well as 2 departing flights. And airports in Vancouver and Montreal also canceled multiple flights. Passengers traveling to Europe today or the next couple of days are being advised to pay attention to their flight status.
It is 5:19 and 8 degrees. This is Toronto's Live at 5 here on CP24.
Coming up, Canada's new Prime Minister is holding his first meeting with the country's premiers this afternoon, days before he's expected to call an election. We've got details right after the break.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is hosting his first meeting with the country's premiers in Ottawa, just days before he's expected to launch a snap election campaign.
You know, we can give ourselves, as Canadians, much more than anyone else can take away. And we can do that by working together. And that's what today's agenda is about. It's about catalyzing investment. It's about ensuring that Canadian workers can work anywhere in this country as they wish. And it's about goods moving across.
Premier Doug Ford, as well as other premiers, are meeting with Carney this afternoon at the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa. The discussion is certain to focus on tariffs and interprovincial trade barriers. A spokesperson for Carney said earlier this week the session would be a chance to discuss creating a single Canadian economy instead of 13 separate ones.
Premier Doug Ford spoke to reporters in Ottawa before the meeting.
we need a united Canada. That's absolutely critical. You know, President Trump doesn't respect weakness. He respects strength, and that's what we need to do. We need to unite, move forward. As for the Ring of Fire, we have, you know, more critical minerals there than anywhere in the world. The world wants them. The U.S. wants them. But we can't take 20 years as we've been taking and duplicating assessments, which is wrong. You know, if the province is doing one, let them continue on. There's no reason to duplicate those assessments.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs and threats to Canada will loom large during the upcoming federal election campaign, which is expected to be called on Sunday. Trump had this to say when asked about the election today.
I don't care who wins up there. I frankly probably would do better with the Liberal than the Conservative, if you want to know the truth. But just a little while ago, before I got involved and totally changed the election, which I don't care about, probably it's to our advantage, actually. But the Conservative was leading against, I call him Governor Trudeau. The Conservative was leading by 35 points. So, you know, so I don't know about that. I think Canada is a place like a lot of other places. If you have a good candidate, the candidate's going to win.
It is 5:24 at 8 degrees. This is Live at 5. Coming up, we'll preview an event being held this weekend in the city to celebrate national pride. Stay with us. Elbows up. It has turned a hockey chant into a Canadian rallying cry. And a big event to celebrate pride in our country will be held in the city tomorrow.
Yeah, Elbows Up Canada will take over Nathan Phillips Square tomorrow after a successful event in Ottawa. Canadians will come together to celebrate unity in the face of annexation threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. Organizer Peter Wall joined CP24 today to discuss the movement.
It's a gathering for Canadian unity. You know, Canada is having a moment right now, Nick. We are going through something, and a lot of us are feeling this thing. We are emotional, we're frustrated, we're concerned, and when you are going through something, it's natural to gather. We gather for weddings, for funerals, for birthday parties. So we are gathering for Canada on Saturday at Nathan Phillips Square.
Jim Cuddy and Arlene Dickinson are some of the big names set to appear at the gathering in Toronto. It begins tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock.
It is 5:27, 8 degrees. This is Live at 5. We are following breaking news tonight. A 31-year-old man is facing a first-degree murder charge in the city's latest homicide. A 60-year-old homeless man was killed in an unprovoked attack on the U of T campus yesterday. We've got details coming up.
Police make an arrest after a man was found dead on U of T's downtown campus this week. More on the search, plus details about the victim coming up.
And Prime Minister Mark Carney meets with Canada's premiers today in Ottawa ahead of an expected election call this weekend.
We'll tell you why 6 Hudson Bay stores will remain open as the company gets permission to liquidate all its other locations starting Monday.
Plus, Heathrow Airport in London has resumed flights after an electrical fire halted operations at one of the world's busiest airports.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lindsay Biscaya.
And I'm Melissa Duggan. This is Live at 5. We have an update to the city's latest investigation into the city's latest homicide.
Yeah, we're going to go live to CP24's Beatrice Faisman, who is tracking the latest details in terms of the search. Bea, what can you tell us?
Lindsay, Melissa, CP24, the first to report that a 31-year-old man is now in police custody. He's charged with first-degree murder in the brutal beating to death of a 60-year-old homeless man yesterday morning on the U of T downtown campus. Police earlier this afternoon, in the midst of a press conference, which was really an appeal to members of the public to take a look at these 2 photos of the suspect, to be alert, to keep their eyes open, and if they saw something, to call police. Well, guess what? That press conference and the release of these 2 photographs yielded results, not only for the police, but for the city at large, because really this is what police classified as a random attack earlier today. 60-year-old Mario Ferreira, police told us, was lying on a bench yesterday morning, 5:20, outside of the pharmacy building on U of T's downtown campus when he was approached by this suspect. Police alleging the suspect, armed with some kind of debris from a construction site, beat Mario Ferreira to death with that item. The autopsy results for Mr. Ferreira came back as saying that he died from blunt force trauma. And again, he's now in police custody, charged with first-degree murder. How was he found? Police sources telling me, Lindsay and Melissa, this afternoon, that it was actually a member of the public who saw that press conference at 1 o'clock, saw those two photographs police put out and that we shared on our screens as well, was paying attention as they were walking around out in 51 Division. That's the east part of the downtown core. Spotted this 31-year-old suspect and did exactly what that person was asked to do, which was call 911 and let police respond. Police earlier said, do not approach the suspect. In fact, Detective Sergeant Trevor Greaves said he could not say with enough vigor that the suspect should be considered armed and dangerous. Do not approach, call 911, and officers will respond immediately. I'm told the suspect is currently in custody, being booked over at 51 Division. Here's what we heard earlier today from the detective sergeant in charge of this case when it comes to his conversation specifically with Mario Ferreira's family. Again, this is a 60-year-old homeless man here in the city of Toronto, and what their hope was in this investigation.
Very few. I don't want to speak out of line. We have been in communication with them. I do want to respect their privacy. We have been able to speak to a couple of family members, and they've been very supportive of the investigation. And obviously I, as one of the investigators and our whole team, want to do everything we can to hold somebody responsible for this. And obviously we don't give them closure, but if we can get some sort of justice and get this person in custody, I do believe that will help them.
So this 31-year-old man now charged with first-degree murder. Police have not revealed what they believe the motive was in this killing, but as Detective Sergeant Grieve told us earlier today, police are working under the assumption this was a completely random attack. He says there was no provocation that he could see when viewing video surveillance footage. There was no argument, there was no conversation between the accused and the victim, and certainly police now very thankful again that a member of the public walking out and about in 51 Division was paying attention, recognized the suspect from the photographs that police released, and called 911. Back to you.
Such a tragedy. Thanks so much for that update, Beatrice. We appreciate it.
Hamilton police have a suspect in custody after a man was found dead in Waterdown earlier this month.
Police say the suspect was the victim's friend. For a closer look at this case, let's bring in CP24 crime analyst Steve Ryan. You've been following this closely all day for us today. What happened here?
So a man was killed in his home on Wakefield Lane in Waterdown. Police believe he was killed on March the 3rd. His body was discovered on March the 6th by a friend who didn't hear from him, so he went to check on him, found out he was shot, and he was pronounced deceased in the home. And the suspect, who was a friend of the deceased, fled to Calgary, and the police had an arrest warrant for him. They flew out to Calgary and returned him just a few days ago.
I want to pick up on something we were talking about last half hour is, the fact that this man was found in Calgary and how much maybe that would complicate an investigation that's happening here.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't really complicate an investigation because it's still within the law of the land. It's still within the country. If a criminal offense is committed, you can be arrested anywhere in the country for that criminal offense if there's an arrest warrant out for you. What's different between an arrest warrant for a murder and, say, the theft of a candy bar would be the return radius. So if you stole a box of candy bars or a pack of smokes, the return radius on that arrest warrant could be 50 kilometers. It would say 50 kilometers, otherwise advise. When it's a murder, the Crown signs off on it saying that if the person is captured anywhere within the country, the return radius will be the entire country. So that's why it's called Canada-wide. He was arrested on the strength of the arrest warrant here, and then the officers here would go out to Calgary and pick him up after he was arrested by Calgary police and then return him because the Crown has authorized the return of that prisoner in the same country.
And I know something in this case we don't have right now, and that is motive. And that is probably something that family and friends want an answer on right now.
Yeah, motive oftentimes tells the family of a homicide victim what happened. But with regards to proving a homicide or getting a conviction in court, you do not need to prove motive. But motive always helps because it tells people why the deed was done. And it certainly does help a family bring closure when they're looking at losing a loved one to an offense like homicide.
Just lastly, you were at the scene, right? So, I mean, what kind of clues do you think maybe investigators will be looking into when it comes to if there's any video cameras around or anything like that?
So the video cameras would have tracked this suspect's whereabouts throughout that neighborhood in Waterdown, and that's what the detective said today. So they have the two of them in the home. The homicide was committed inside of the house. Most of the evidence is going to come from either forensic evidence inside that house or the narratives that friends and neighbors would have provided. But I would say that everything that needs to be known would be contained inside that house.
So an arrest in this case. Thanks so much for that update. We appreciate that. That is CP24 crime analyst Steve Ryan joining us here in studio. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, it is right in the middle of rush hour, so we're going to kind of quick check on the traffic with our traffic specialist, Adjoa. How's it looking out there?
Oh, Lindsay, things are getting a little bit better in some areas and others not so much, but watching a problem that area you probably want to avoid. This is through Scarborough. So the southbound Kennedy on-ramp that takes you to the 401 West, usually accessible. Not right now. They're just trying to move a vehicle that was stuck at the end of the ramp, and they don't want cars getting caught in the backlog. That's the good thing. But if that is your usual ramp, use the northbound Kennedy on-ramp to get onto the West 401. 401 on the eastbound side, still busy. It's heaviest from the 427 in sections out towards about the Warden stretch. Delays on the DVP north from Don Mills right on through to the 401, and still pretty busy on the Gardner as you make your way out of and actually heading into the downtown core. It's pretty slow as well, but again, to be expected, it is rush hour. I'll send it back to you both.
Okay, Adjoa, thanks for that. Police say a senior has died after she was struck by a vehicle in the King and Strawn area.
It happened just before 3:30 at Massey Street in King. Police say the woman in her 70s was struck by a pickup truck. The driver did remain at the scene. There are some road closures in the area.
And police are investigating after a man was found shot on Danzig Street.
Police were called to Danzig in Morningside just after 3:30 this morning. That's where officers found a man in his 20s with a gunshot wound. He was rushed to hospital and is expected to survive. Police have not released any information about suspects or where exactly that shooting happened. Anyone with information is asked to contact police.
And a man and a woman are facing additional charges in an alleged Taylor Swift ticket scam.
Police say an investigation was launched in November into complaints involving fraudulent or undelivered Taylor Swift tickets purchased from a third-party vendor. The individuals went by the Facebook profile name of Denise Blackhawk. Further investigations revealed a confirmed 55 incidents of fraud. 44-year-old Denise Tizer and 56-year-old David Blake are facing charges including money laundering and possession of property obtained by crime over $5,000. The two are also facing separate charges in Toronto related to Taylor Swift concert tickets.
And a significant pro-Palestinian rally is planned downtown this weekend, and Toronto police did hold a briefing on what officers will be focusing on.
We will continue to balance the right to protest with the need to maintain public order and public safety, as well as the safety of our members. It's important to recognize that interfering with our ability to maintain order and provide public safety will indeed have potential consequences. Engaging in confrontations with law enforcement, obstructing police, or resorting to violence is not acceptable, and we will not hesitate to enforce the law.
Some have expressed concern about the potential for hate speech, as well as the potential for confrontation between Al-Qaed's participants and those who oppose this event. Hate has no place in our city. This weekend, Toronto Police will be highly visible. Our members will be present throughout the demonstrations, proactively identifying, when needed, instances of hate. I want to remind everyone that every reported instance of hate, including in demonstrations, will be investigated. This includes hate crimes, hate speech, hate signage, and flags of terrorist organizations designated by Public Safety Canada.
Jewish groups, including B'nai B'rith Canada, have called on cities to ban Al-Quds Day rallies, saying they're a conduit for incitement and anti-Semitism.
It is 5:41, 8 degrees outside. This is Live at 5, and we've got a live look outside Hudson's Bay at Scarborough Town Centre tonight. We'll tell you which stores Canada's oldest retailer plans to save. Coming up next with C. Jalou. Stay with us.
An Ontario court has given Canada's oldest retailer permission to liquidate all but 6 of its stores.
For more on when the sales will begin and which stores will be saved, we're going to go live to CP24's Sija Liu, who's outside the Hudson's Bay at Scarborough Town Centre. Sija, is this maybe one of the stores that will be saved?
Unfortunately, this is not one of the stores that will be saved. This store at Scarborough Town Centre, along with 70 plus others, will begin liquidation sales on Monday, going until June 5th and vacating by June 30th. The 6 stores that Hudson's Bay will be saving include its flagship location on Yonge Street downtown, its Yorkdale Mall location, the Hillcrest Mall location in Richmond Hill, and the other 3 are in Quebec. Now, the retailer has been in court all week trying to find a way to pay back the millions of dollars it owes creditors and not shut down completely. And today, the judge gave a green light to begin selling inventory at all the stores but 6. Now, the 6 stores, the plan was to liquidate all the stores, but because of the recent news of Hudson's Bay closing down, shoppers have been flocking to the stores, causing a surge in sales. So that's why they were able to save these 6 stores, but that doesn't mean they won't be eventually liquidated. The company's lawyer says they will be added to the liquidation sale if a restructuring solution isn't found quickly. Now, it was back on March 7th that the company filed for creditor protection. It was facing significant financial challenges, desperately in need of cash to make basic payments to keep the business running. The retailer says it's been seeing a slowdown in business because of reduced consumer spending, tensions between the U.S. and Canada trade war, and just a post-pandemic shift in store traffic and how people shop. Now, today's ruling is a glimmer of a hope because Hudson's Bay is not shutting down completely just for now. But here's how a retail analyst, Bruce Winder, is seeing the situation.
This allows them to keep it open, but I don't see this as a savior for the Bay. I mean, there's a reason why they've come to the point where they are. There's also questions around overheads. You know, what do they do with their corporate staff now that they only have 6 stores open and they're liquidating everything else? So there's all kinds of questions that can come out of this. You know, I don't see this materially changing the Bay's fate. However, it may draw attention to a lender or it may draw attention to a buyer, which would be interesting to see how that plays out as we enter the spring.
And Hudson's Bay employs about 9,000 people across the country, so a lot of those jobs won't be able to be saved. And speaking to shoppers outside the STC location here, they say they're sad to see Hudson's Bay go. As for the sales, Hudson's Bay has not said how deep those discounts will be, but the liquidation begins on Monday. Here's more reaction from shoppers today.
I am in shock and I'm totally devastated as to what's happening or has happened. Because I just heard that all but 6 stores are closing down, and this was a store that my mom took me. That my parents have passed now, and yeah, I'm really sad about it.
I mean, lots of words. I can't lie. I've been shopping for like 4 or 5 years. I mean, a lot of good memories in here. I can't lie.
And a few other things for shoppers to keep in mind. The loyalty program, that's been paused, so you won't be able to redeem those points at all anymore. And if you have a gift card, you have to use that gift card by April 6th. After that, they won't be accepting it anymore. But as for those sales, the liquidation beginning on Monday, and stores like this one at Scarborough Town Centre, Lindsay and Melissa, would be vacating by the end of June.
Significant updates there on the Hudson's Bay front. Thanks so much for that, Sija.
In other news we're following, Prime Minister Mark Carney is hosting his first meeting with the country's premiers in Ottawa just days before he's expected to launch a snap election campaign.
You know, we can give ourselves as Canadians much more than anyone else can take away. And we can do that by working together. And that's what today's agenda is about. It's about catalyzing investment. It's about ensuring that Canadian workers can work anywhere in this country as they wish. And it's about goods moving across.
Premier Doug Ford and other premiers are meeting with Carney this afternoon at the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa. The discussion is certain to focus on tariffs and interprovincial trade barriers. A spokesperson for Carney said earlier this week the session would be a chance to discuss creating a single Canadian economy instead of 13 separate ones.
And Premier Doug Ford spoke to reporters in Ottawa before that meeting.
That's President Trump's comments. That's up to him to comment. I have no comment about that. All I want is a united Canada, that we work together, and we really, really work hard to get exemptions on these tariffs. We know April 2nd, globally, everyone's going to get these tariffs, and there's nothing we can do, as we were told in person, and we just need to stay focused and united.
And here's something interesting. The latest Nanos research tracking numbers show with an election call just days away, the Liberals and Conservatives are locked in a virtual tie. Projections show Prime Minister Mark Carney's Liberals have picked up significant gains in several regions, including the Atlantic, Ontario, and British Columbia. The weekly numbers show the Conservatives with 35% support and the Liberals with 34%. The latest numbers put the NDP at just 16%. That's within the margin of error.
U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs and threats to Canada will loom large during the upcoming federal election campaign, which is expected to be called on Sunday. Trump had this to say when asked about the election today.
I don't care who wins up there. I frankly probably would do better with the Liberal than the Conservative, if you want to know the truth. But just a little while ago, before I got involved and totally changed the election, which I don't care about, probably it's to our advantage, actually. But the Conservative was leading against, I call him Governor Trudeau. The Conservative was leading by 35 points. So I don't know about that. I think Canada is a place like a lot of other places. If you have a good candidate, the candidate's going to win.
It is 5:50. It feels like 4 degrees outside. This is Live at 5. Coming up, London's Heathrow Airport is resuming some flights later today following a fire. We've got the latest on the situation next. Heathrow Airport is slowly resuming operations after an electrical substation fire caused a power outage that shuttered Europe's busiest air travel hub.
A British Airways jet touching down just before sunset after Heathrow lifted its closure order. The hours-long closure disrupted global travel for hundreds of thousands of passengers. Further arrivals followed and the first departure took place. The British government temporarily lifted restrictions on overnight flights to help clear the backlog.
This has been a major incident. I mean, short of anybody getting hurt, this is as big as it gets for our airport. And we are actually coming back quite fast, I would say, when you consider the amount of systems that we have to shut down, then bring back up and make sure that they're safe. It's fueling systems, it's bridges, it's escalators, elevators. All of these systems have to be brought back up, tested to make sure they're safe and put into operation.
Transformer fire caused the outage at Heathrow. This drone footage shows the flames engulfing the substation. And UK's energy minister said there is no foul play suspected, and it appears to be a catastrophic accident. We spoke to some passengers who were caught up in the chaos.
Flew here on British Airways to London, then took the train to Italy, and then flying home. And, evidently they knew about this last night.
We're waiting. We don't know. One of our party was said that we wouldn't get out till the 24th, which is a long time,
One aviation expert compares today's day-long closure of Heathrow Airport to the air travel delays after 9/11. Pearson Airport says 5 scheduled arriving flights from Heathrow were canceled, as well as 2 departing flights. Airports in Vancouver and Montreal also canceled multiple flights. Passengers traveling to Europe today or within the next couple of days, you're advised to pay very close attention to the status of your flight.
It is 5:55, 8 degrees. This is Live at 5. Coming up, we will tell you what you need to know to get around if you're planning on taking public transit this weekend.
A heads up for subway riders on Line 1 this weekend.
Yeah, there's some closures to keep in mind. So there'll be no service between Finch and St. Clair tomorrow and Sunday due to TTC track work. North York Centre and Lawrence will be closed, but all other stations will be open. Shuttle buses are running instead, and then regular service is expected to resume Monday morning starting at 6.
Some GO Transit service changes to keep in mind this weekend. Trains will be replaced by buses on the Stouffville line all weekend. But those buses won't be stopping at Milliken, Agincourt, or Kennedy GO. Lakeshore East trains will only operate between Pickering Go and Durham College Oshawa every 30 minutes, and shuttle buses will run express from Pickering to Union Station.
Also, City Crews will be conducting its second pothole repair blitz tonight.
City workers will spread out across the city, fill in those potholes for 24 hours from 6:30 p.m. tonight to 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. More than 68,000 potholes have already been repaired so far this year. And you can report a pothole, a pesky one that maybe caught your attention, by calling 311 or going to the City of Toronto website.
Wonder how many reports they get. It's 5:59 right now. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24. And we leave you with a live look from Ottawa, where the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is set to address the media shortly after his first meeting with the country's premiers.
Carney is expected to call an election on Sunday.
And thanks for watching. CTV News at 6 is next.